I think it's time that people stop treating black and white photography as a secondary form of photography and start treating it as its own form of art entirely. That may not be the most shocking thing to hear from me, and honestly, from really any photographer or artist, but I think more often than not, subconsciously, we're treating black and white as a just kind of a second option rather than it being a true regular thing that we shoot for, that we think about. It's often just kind of like, oh yeah, I'll throw the monochrome, the black and white onto this photo now. I focus only on black and white photography, and when I started not that long ago, because I'm still very new to this whole photography business, black and white photography for me is so unique and special and such a fun experience because it's the only thing I work in, because it's all I do for photography. If you check out my Instagram, you'll see only black and white. A lot of times it's referred to being a black and white purist because you just get obsessed with it. So when I started doing black and white photography, one of the things I learned very quickly was just how much different the projects would go. I mainly do street photography, and when I was on the streets with my wife and we were both taking pictures, she was taking color, I'm taking black and white, the process and the strategy is different. So if you're doing street photography with black and white, you just end up going for different types of shots. You focus on different types of things. Light and shadow are just different for you. And it's really, really cool because you just end up kind of doing completely different things. And it was then that I realized, okay, black and white photography has something really different about it. And I wanted to talk about this for a long time. I just didn't really know how to put it into words. But after doing this for quite a few months now, I feel like I can speak to it a little bit more. So that's what I wanted to do in this video. First off, you gotta stop shooting black and white as a color photo. A lot of photographers who struggle with black and white or are doing what I think are doing black and white a disservice are actually shooting in color first and then just editing it into black and white. They're just hitting the monochrome button or black and white or whatever your software allows you to do. They're just changing it to black and white. A lot of my photos happen to actually, they're shot in black and white, but then I actually have the option to see the photo in both versions. And a lot of the times what I'll find is that the black and white photo that looks really, really good or just needs a little bit of tuning to look beautiful looks terrible in color. It's not really well lit, maybe in some cases. All the dynamics, all the interesting things that made that picture cool, sometimes they're just not there anymore because color just adds a whole lot of different dynamics. And this isn't to say that like color doesn't take skill or that you shouldn't use color anymore, by the way. I'm just more saying that when you're shooting for color, you're shooting for color. When you're shooting for black and white, why are you not shooting for black and white? I think this is just something that we should be doing, but nobody's doing it because it's just not baked into your mind. This is especially challenging if you shoot on film, because if you're shooting black and white film, you're still doing that guessing work, but now you're doing guessing work with something that you're unfamiliar with, which means the only way to learn is to, you have to meter differently, you have to think about the picture differently, and then you have to go see them in the lab later and just see how they come out. I shoot digital mostly, so for me, it's very easy to kind of see what I'm going to be taking. I think digital people actually have a huge advantage in this space because you're able to actually change your camera settings so that your images, even your viewfinder, all of it is showing it to you in black and white by adding kind of like this effect onto it. It's not necessarily what like you're always going to want your shot to look like per se, because actually what happens is I'll shoot with my viewfinder showing me black and white. I'll shoot for black and white in the sense that my viewfinder shows me black and white, all that. But then when it gets to my editing software, it's actually in color again. I have to go and edit it to make it black and white. The thing that I've noticed though is because I shot it in black and white, one, I know what it needs to look like. Two, I know what I need to do to edit it to make it better. And three, the angles, the composition, all of those things play better into the black and white photo than they would if they were color. I do think that those things all come into play when you're taking a photo in camera, and then definitely have a huge impact on how they end up in your editing software. So it's really important, I think, for everyone to start shooting for whatever color space you're using. So in this case, if you're running black and white, you have to think about the fact that it's not just black and white, it's black, it's a whole bunch of different grays, and then it's white. A lot of people think that black and white is super simple and boring, but some of the most famous photographers were black and white photographers. I think often we get caught up in what we're seeing in the world, so what my eyes pick up, which has color, and then we kind of forget or feel like black and white isn't capturing what we want to see. And I think it's because black and white does change things. A lot of people will say black and white is more is better at capturing the soul of someone. So if you're taking a picture of a person, it really simplifies things. They are lit in a very interesting way. They can look very serious. They can look very sad. They can look, dirty. They can look rough, but they can also look angelic and beautiful and porcelain almost. There's a lot of really, really cool directions you can go with taking pictures of people. I've had some really great experiences throughout my time capturing a bunch of really cool people. Not only is street photography a lot of fun in general, whether you're shooting color or in black and white, one thing I've learned is just getting to take pictures of people in black and white. I really feel like I get to capture their essence a little bit more than if I just took it in color. And I think as you get better at it too, and as I hope to get better at it, I'll get better at capturing people in a really unique way that only black and white can do. The same is true, I think, for architecture too. I've had some really, really good experiences with just architecture shots. Depending on what kind of light you're getting, sometimes you get a really like hazy look. Sometimes you get a really like sharp, soft look. I don't know. It can make hard stone look really soft, and it's really cool. So hopefully this kind of gets things moving in your head, and you start thinking about taking more shots in black and white, and then actually making sure you're shooting for it. I've proven it a million times to myself and to anyone I've had this conversation to. I just show them pictures side by side that I took for black and white, and then showed them in color. I'm like, look how bad it looks as a color photo. Like if I try to pass this along, people are gonna be like, that's not a great photo. Sometimes it does work out though, and I don't want to make it sound like you're a bad person because you found a pretty photo and then you made it black and white and it ends up looking better in black and white. There's nothing wrong with that. That often can be the case, but I think a lot of the times you get lucky more than it's actually a skill thing. If you really want to get skilled and start developing really, really cool pictures, I think you need to start actually shooting for black and white. That means the exposure, the f-stop, shutter speed, all those things are more geared for making really beautiful shadowy images, maybe very grayscale images, or that angelic white, bright images. Depending on what you want to do, it's up to you. There's so many different styles of black and white photography. All right, that's it. I just want to talk about that. If you have any questions or you're interested in black and white photography, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Also, what do you think? Do you think black and white photography is underrated? Do you think people need to go back to it? Is it the best way ever to take photos? I think so. I'd love to hear from you either way. Or if you love color and you just enjoy taking color photos, have you ever considered challenging yourself and going after black and white for a little bit? I don't know. If you do just end up doing it though, I highly recommend taking your time and really looking for those moments where the light and the shadow come together in a way that only black and white is going to highlight. I think you'll have a good time.